Hi, my name is Tom, and today I'd like to talk to you about the shifter for a C5, C6, and C7, and the issue on the shifter bushings. What I'd like to do is to show you first what a shifter bushing is. Okay, this is a factory shifter bushing. It's oblong and it fits into the two holes that are used to mount the shifter to the torque tube. Let me give you how that looks. Okay, here's the shifter that comes. It's actually out of a C7. What happens is this mounts down on the torque tube, and there are two T40 bolts that fit through this hole and mount it to the torque tube. Now this is the upper mount, and the torque tube kind of goes around in a circle here. And this is actually a little shoe. Let me angle it up here. It's a shoe that fits into a slot on the torque tube. Now this black plastic is there to prevent it from wearing or having direct contact between the aluminum torque tube and the shifter boxes. What I'd like to point out to you, as I said, this was out of my C7. What I did is, part of the instructions, I installed a MGW, and what you have to do is you got to actually remove the shifter rod and transfer it over to the MGW. And what I'd like to show you right now is what it looks like. This is actually a box out of a C6 Z06. Now, on the previous one, I could show you that it had bushings here. Well, the Z06s did not. The earlier ones did not. The later ones, they converted, because all the complaints of the rattling, they did convert over to the stock C6 shifter box. This is an earlier one in which there are no bushings. You can see, let me give you a comparison. These are the two boxes, and I'll kind of show it side by side. You can see that the flange on the Z06 box is much thicker, and there's no rubber bushings there. Okay, let me put that down real quick. Let me give you an example of what happens to these bushings over time. This is this was actually one-piece bushing, and it was what I did is I removed it out of my C6. It was a 2005. And it probably had maybe 25,000 miles on it. So I think what happened over time, the heat from the torque tube in the tunnel just it caused this bushing to fail. So I was getting a lot of slop, and so I took it all apart and I found this bushing had failed. You can see it's very brittle and it kind of fell apart. Next I'm going to show you the polyurethane bushings that you can get from Zip. What it is a sandwich affair. Okay, you have two pieces. One fits on the upper, one fits on the lower. Let me show you how that would go in here. One would be up on the top, and the other would be on the bottom, replaces the rubber one. I'd like to show you that, yeah, they are flexible. Okay, they are significantly harder, but you can see that they're pretty thin. Let me show you how it does compare to the stock bushing. It's a little thinner, okay, and so I'm sure it provides a firmer feel, but you know, I happen to question whether or not it provides a lot of vibration dampening that you require. I have not installed it, so I don't have any comment about its ability. Now, here are the aftermarket bushings that you can get from Corvette Central, carries them, JW Motoring, West Coast Corvette. They all carry this aftermarket bushing, and there's been some complaint that they start out round, but the one on the right here is one that I took out of my car after 3 years, and it did kind of assume an oblong shape. Okay, they squeeze fairly well into that shifter box. Okay, it's really not causing any harm to the bushing. You know, these are rated, you know, to stretch quite a bit. So what happens is when you bolt it in place, it's going to distort a little bit, and the bolt, when you drive it through here, is going to be significantly tighter on the shifter box. So it's kind of in between the polyurethane and the original rubber ones. So it's still a good option that I recommend people look at. Okay, what I'd like to also point out to you, and I'm going to bring up my C7 shifter box again, is people often complain of rattling in the shifter handle, and what I think is it sets up a harmonic in the box. But if this shoe isn't really wedged tightly against the torque tube, it can kind of bounce, and you can see that if it starts hitting off the torque tube at certain RPM ranges, then it's going to cause some vibration that kind of goes up to the handle, and it has that very irritating rattle. So if you mess around with your shifter box at all, make sure it's wedged tightly in the bottom, and before you reinstall the console, wiggle that thing back and forth. It should really not wiggle at all. It should be very firm, very firmly attached. Another thing I'd like to point out to you is if you replace the shifter itself, there's 4 little bolts like this. Now you probably can't see it, but these bolts have a kind of a triangular shape. What they've done is they're designed to really dig into the aluminum shifter box. So if you over torque these and strip the holes, you're in trouble. So what I recommend is if you put these back in, that you simply use a little bit of Loctite and not over torque them. Okay, that's all I had today. If you have any questions, you can contact me via email or on the Corvette forum. My name is Russ M05. Thank you very much.